Hey there! So it's been a little while since my last YouTube video, but I got a really cool invite to go to the Giant factory for the 2026 Giant Anthem launch to test ride the bike, to see the design process and everything that goes on behind the scenes. And that is something too cool to not share. So this video is, I suppose, a little bit of a recap of the couple of days that I spent in Taiwan at Giant, visiting the Giant factory, seeing the process and the behind the scenes that only around about 50 people in the whole world have ever seen that haven't actually been a Giant employee, which I thought was, as I said, super cool. The new bike, everyone's seen it. It's won world champs, it's won some World Cup, maybe one or two under the Giant off-road team and Alan Hathley. But I wanted to go and see what the design process was, how the bike evolved from an idea or a dream to the bike that it is. To check out that aluminium mule that they test ride and see basically what makes this bike so special when the suspension design itself looks like a lot of the other cross-country bikes out there. I haven't been to Taiwan before either, so I'm really keen to see what it's like and experience, I suppose, the industry and seeing all the factories and stuff like that there. Let's check it out.
Here we are, getting the presentation underway for the 2026 Anthem launch. First thing they do is they talk us through the history of the bike and the reasons behind why they've updated it and turned it into totally different frame design. The shock's moved, the geometry's changed, the geometry's adjustable, it's lighter, it's faster, and they talk about the process that goes on behind it. Joe, the main, I suppose, engineer behind the bike, talks us through his process and the concept, I suppose, the aluminium mule they use to test the geometry. That's been in the media a little bit. Seen here is Alan Hathley's actual race bike from Worlds, the black one. Pretty cool to see it in the flesh with a few little battle scars and wear and tear on it, which is nice to actually see that it's the exact bike that he has actually ridden on the prototype. Here's the aluminium mule bike that they've used to test the suspension, test the geometry and things like that. And then here is the raw, I suppose, half manufactured. Here's a completely finished frame that you can touch and feel and see how smooth inside the tubes are, the outside finish of it, and how much, I suppose, movement the rear swing arm has when it's pushing through the shock, to see if there's any, like, I suppose, the leverage ratio and stuff like that, how it changes. Very smooth. The top pivot on the actual bike only moves like a couple of millimeters, so the actual flex in the stays is very minimal. I think this really helps with the actual side-to-side stiffness of the bike, which is one of the things that you really notice. The bike feels like it's got a lot more travel because you can hammer it on the descents. Really impressive. The whole range is on display here, so all the normal Anthem race models as well as the Anthem X, which is sort of like the longer travel fork variant, which also has down tube storage. You can see inside behind the shock there. Here we go, just having a look at how much movement that pivot point actually has, where the shock sits into the frame. Finish on the actual frame only options is really sick. Would love to get that top one, which is the Anthem X. Showing off more of the Anthem X range here, the different build levels for the different countries. I think that Australia's got a couple of them. They don't have the top 0 model. Obviously the investment in this bike and having Alan Hathley riding it to World Championships is a pretty big investment. Also having his feedback, they talk about it a lot as to what he wanted and to like make a bike that suited what he really wanted out of his new race bike. Move on now to the museum, which is not just Giant focused but all types of bikes. Talks about like Tour de France, mountain bikes, downhill bikes and everything in between. Pretty cool that they have that. It's sort of a thing I imagine school kids and stuff like that might go and see. Here we are arriving at the Giant factory. This is Giant's original factory. It's one of 9 worldwide and produces around about 1 million bikes a year. It's their high quality factory, which works on carbon and their more expensive aluminium bikes, as well as manufacturing for other brands. AJ here is just talking us through the process, the factories, and specifically for the Anthem takes 56 people to build and around about 3 weeks from the carbon strands through to a complete bike in a box shipping to your local Giant dealer. They did share a lot of the secrets of their factory, but there was a couple of bits where they did have that sign up to say that we can't take photos or videos. The first part of the factory tour shows the actual carbon sheets getting made. So they go from 64 strands of carbon that then go through a machine, laminate all those together to make a nice wide sheet. They are then sandwiched together in multiple layers to make the carbon strong and flexible and strong in the right ways for each individual frame. Here it is, the 64 strands going through there. Certainly wouldn't want to be the guy who has to lace that thing up every morning. You can see it rolling through onto the barrel. This gentleman is laying it at a specific angle, correct for the Anthem. After it's laminated into a number of layers of carbon together, then goes onto the barrel again, and it goes into a cold room that's minus 16 degrees Celsius. It was pretty good in here, I must say. It's super humid in Taiwan for the most part, and I'd be happy sitting in there for half an hour or two, maybe with a cold drink or two. Here's the famous Giant water tower, and then it was straight into the testing of the carbon rims and the new Anthem frame. So they're testing all the twisting, bottom bracket twist, brake forces, rear wheel flexing, head tube flexing, big butts on seat post flexing, literally trying to flex it and break it through thousands of cycles in a specific way. They also x-ray frames randomly on a 3D x-ray machine, as seen by this dude. He also checks every single carbon road bike fork for Giant as well. You can see the cutouts here. This is actually how the carbon frames are laid up and put into the mold. This is a frame that's just gone into the mold. You can see it's kind of, looks a bit funky, but you can still see what it actually is going to turn into. It has the, the bladder inside there, so that it has a nice smooth void-free finish inside that frame. This one here, you can see, has just come out of the mold, so it's been baked, cooked together. Meanwhile, more testing on the new wheels. The wheel is updated as well, so it's stiffer, stronger, and the rim profile is hugely improved, so you can't pinch flat your tubeless mountain bike tyres, which has been a bit of a pain in the bum for some people. The testing process is crazy. This last part of the tour shows the actual assembly of the bikes, going from a frame, putting the front and rear triangles together, wheels on, all the internal cabling, hoses, the integrated handlebars, the dropper post. On this day, they actually just had Anthems coming through. So normally it would be much more random, and you might get a few Anthems, a few TCR road bikes, a few e-bikes, not just all of one manufacturer. Pretty cool to see that the system is super automated, but at the same time, it's very much hands-on by the factory workers. I did give a couple of high fives to the factory workers. They put some great bikes together. Asked them to make sure that they've got all the grease in the right spots and things like that as well. You can see all the frames hanging up here in the roof, which is on an automated system. It's actually those frames are moving along and then come down onto the actual factory floor and put together. Day 2 of the launch event was the trail riding day. We headed out with the full cast in our tour. I suppose there's about 20 of us from all over the world. We got on, first up was the Anthem cross-country race bike, which had the full SRAM XX SL drivetrain, RockShox flight attendant, as well as the new Giant carbon wheel, the one-piece handlebar, and the brand new Giant Anthem frame. All the bikes were set up by SRAM and Shimano to each rider's preference to make sure that you could ride the bike like it was your own. We headed out on a guided tour of the lap. It's basically a cross-country World Cup style little trail. A great mix of conditions and corners and stuff like that to test all the different aspects of the bike.
Well, riding in Taiwan, it is hot and humid and rough and sort of like Cairns actually. Well, the Cairns World Cup and trails at Smithfield, it's actually quite similar. Punchy little uphills and rough little descents. Great little test course.
Riding the Anthem and the Anthem X back to back, it really highlighted some of the main differences between the two models. Anthem X doesn't have the suspension lockout on the handlebar, so you have to reach down and change it yourself. Having said that, when I was on the Anthem X, I actually found that it pedaled really well and I didn't actually ever want to change it. Flipping between the two bikes, it actually made me realise that changing between the high and low settings in the rear suspension actually made a really big difference, and I came to the conclusion that I like the cross-country bike with the steeper geometry and the shorter travel fork in the lower setting to slacken things back out again and get a little bit more flow, better than the trail bike, which has the 130mm fork and naturally slackens things out with a little bit more suspension travel. After riding both bikes in a number of different settings on this awesome course, I really found the takeaway was that how the new bike works together with the wheels and the stiffness of the new one-piece handlebar and stem. When you load the bike up, when you're leaning it into corners, you really notice that the bike's not flexing at all and the suspension's still working super smooth, which gives you more traction and helps you basically ride faster with more control, which is what everyone realistically wants. The Aspen on the XC bike I found was a little bit skatey in the super dry conditions, but the Recon Race on the trail bike, which is my go-to for at home, is definitely my favourite, and I'll be popping them on my new bike once I build it up. The real strength that the new Anthem has is that it makes you feel so much more confident descending. It feels like you've got a lot more suspension travel than maybe what the bike does with 120mm front and rear suspension. The trail bike has that 130mm fork, but I really think that the XC one is just so much bike. The other amazing thing is that it's actually a lot lighter, so it goes uphill a lot faster than the previous model. The handlebar lockout is a great thing, and the flight attendant works to another level, and that's my go-to. I plan to have that on my new bike as well. There are a couple of Strava segments out on this loop. The Giant stuff did wind me up, and I had to go off a couple of the descents, and man, when you're pushing the bike on limit, it's even more fun, more confidence inspiring, as I mentioned.
So that's a wrap on my 2-day visit to Giant Taiwan, test riding the bike and checking out the factory. It was an amazing experience. Thanks a lot to Giant for the invite and for making this happen. I truly appreciate it. After 10 years riding Giant bikes, it is still amazing to go there and see just how much goes on behind each and every one of the bikes that they make. It's something that I suppose that I had never thought of before, that literally 56 people are involved in building my bike, and it takes about 3 weeks. So really just amazing and super stoked on the experience. Thank you. Please give the channel a follow and like if you can. Got any questions, pop them down the bottom. Thank you.